What's up, guys, and welcome back for another solo mining episode. We're actually going to be doing some rare ore sites today. I figured, kind of Sunday, don't normally do a whole lot of mining, as you probably heard me say in past episodes, but it's been like 3 weeks in a row that I've actually done some mining on the weekend. So, I'm out in a Mars space, of all places. This is probably like the longest I've spent in a Mars space, but I figured I'd come out here for the day and just kind of look for the Empire border sites. But I already found one. As you can tell, I've got ore already compressed and in my hold, but I figured I'll do a little bit more. I wasn't going to do an episode today, but I did this first ore site out here, and then I went to 3 jumps, compressed it, logged out, came back a couple hours later to kind of just make my way back to Caldari space. And luckily, one of these border sites popped up right next door to where I kind of logged out at. So I think we're gonna go ahead and take it down, just so you can kind of see the process and everything. It'll give us a good chance to kind of talk about it. It's been a while since we've done an episode that's covered these. Now, I'm usually out here for either Noxium or Isogen, but the Dark Ochre and the Crocite are good to grab. But minor etiquette, I just decided to go straight for Yttrium because there was already a retriever hitting both the Dark Ochre and Crocite there, which is fine. You know, grab one of these, edge rocks and just kind of warp around it and, collect some Isogen. So these can be kind of obnoxious because, one, their frequency is kind of random. You'll have people that'll just mine out all the good stuff and leave some of the other stuff kind of there and not, despawn the site. You definitely want to despawn the site if you can. That'll force newer sites to spawn up. So a lot of travel. That's why I take a prospect or an endurance. Normally I don't need the drones because there's usually always people there kind of mining. But if you do find yourself kind of on a belt by yourself and you don't have any competition, normal high-sec frigate rats will show up, and it's nice to take those down, which is why endurance or something helps. But we're pretty far away from any major hub here, and that's one thing I would say is if you're looking for like a high-sec home that, you have access to Pyro, Plag, Beld, and Scordite on the belts, 0.5s are going to be your best bet. 0.5, 0.6, away from trade hubs, away from trafficked areas. But also what I found is if I'm hanging out in like areas or constellations that have a bunch of 0.5s that are adjacent to 0.4s, then you have the option of having these things show up. And that's how you find them. You just go to the agency, go to the ore anomalies section, look for any 0.5s. And then what I normally do is I view that system on the map, make sure, see if it has a 0.4 next to it. If it does, and there's an anomaly in that 0.5, there's a good chance it's an Empire border site. So that's just a really good strategy. And I usually find them pretty good. I mean, they can be pretty far apart too. We're talking like 10, 16, 20 jumps apart. So it's not one of those things that I kind of just chain together. But when they kind of pop up and when I check and they're close by, I'll go grab them. That's why I'm also using just regular miner 2s instead of the modulated deep cores I normally run, because I don't want to carry any extra crystals or anything. It brings the cost down of the ship. This fit ship is like 43 million or so, and we can hit a couple of these sites and pretty much make our money back easily with these. But it's also just a really good source for Isogen, and it's a lot easier than kind of battling low sec and stuff for Kernite. I'd say Poshman is also pretty easy. You just have to be a lot more aware of your surroundings there. No local. One thing we're looking out for there is people actually warping to the anomalies in Poshman cloaked and then kind of sneaking up on you. That's the biggest danger. D-scan will give them away if they're not flying around cloaked. So but these are pretty good. I figured I'd break up the monotony today, and I've been meaning to go out and actually do this for a while. I need to make some more ventures and stuff, so this was a pretty good excuse for that. Also, I've been doing a lot of mining. I probably have been done more mining this past week than I normally do, and a lot of it has just been kind of routine high sec mining. I've varied it up with different ships and stuff, but like I really just kind of needed to do something completely different. And I think it's nice just to kind of get out of your comfort zone a little bit, you know, even just out of the region. You know, we're probably 20 plus jumps from where we normally operate, which is nice, you know, get to see a new skybox and kind of just some new scenery is definitely nice. But I've probably I've probably got a lot of this stuff already compressed on the stockpile. I think the stockpile is at like 500 million compressed value. So we've taken a little off of it for industry and stuff, but for the most part, the bulk of what we've mined in the more recent future has still been saved. But I don't know, I can either give this stuff to the industry alt and they can make some ventures and sell, or we have the option of just throwing it on the stockpile. Really just comes, really kind of depends. I do like just kind of stockpiling and stuff. I'm getting kind of the point now where I'm kind of getting to the point where I'm really just kind of waiting on some accounts to drop Omega and finish the like final phase of my kind of consolidation and stuff. So I'm trying not to get too deeply invested in manufacturing and stuff in high sec, because if I do move to null, I don't want to have to like cancel jobs or whatever. So we are kind of getting rid of a lot of buy orders. I'm letting a lot of contracts, buy orders kind of like sell off instead of adding more to them. I'm definitely getting that itch, and it happens occasionally. Every few months I'll just get that itch to go like to nullsec or to Poshman. You're just trying to change scenery for a month or two, and I've definitely felt that kind of coming on this past week or so. But I think a lot of it has to do with just how rowdy high sec is nowadays. I figure we'll talk about that kind of in this episode too. The filling up this prospect on these sites can take a little bit of time. Where, you know, these miner 2s are 60-second cycles, and it's not a ton of yield per cycle, so it takes a minute. But kind of just talk about like kind of like how high sec is and stuff. I mean, I haven't had a lot of problems, but I think a lot of the issues, I kind of avoid probably a lot of confrontation in high sec because of my irregular play time. I normally don't play on the weekends, and I usually advise people not to play on the weekends because the population is just so much higher, and the chances of like, you know, gang fleets flying around are just so much greater. One of the big reasons I normally don't play on the weekend is just because it's kind of like my my time off from the game for the most part, which I think everybody needs, you know, time away. Now, if I have like some downtime on the weekends, I'll pretty much do like product discovery. Product discovery doesn't require me to get off, get out of undock. I can just kind of stay in station and just kind of do that. That's usually like a good. I usually do that in the mornings. I usually do 6 accounts for product discovery. I do them in sets of 3, because that's kind of the optimal number for product discovery. You can only do so many submissions per time, so you can only do like 5 submissions, and then there's like a minute cooldown if you're going pretty quick. So what I do is I do 5 on one account, switch, 5 on another account, switch, and then once I do the last 5, you know, the 10 through 15th submission on the 3rd account, and I switch back to the 1st, they're good to go, and I can just chain them just like that over and over and over. Usually takes like an hour or so to do 3, and then I'll take usually a break and then come back and do the other 3. I really only do product discovery on Omega accounts because, one, I can have them up at the same time, so I can do that whole like pair 3 kind of rotation. And I normally only do product discovery on characters that are less than level 500. Once they hit level 500, they pretty much come off of the like the list of guys that need to be done every day, because that last 150 levels to get that martial skin's like maybe worth on a good day like 200 million, and that's not a whole lot of value for like 150 levels. But if I don't have anybody else, then I'll get on there and kind of slowly work them up to 650. Once they're at level 650, once they've gotten all those rewards on that track, then I don't worry about it. The only reason my main is like level 1900 and something is because I just was doing it for ISK in nullsec, and it for like, you know, intermittently for several years, and just kind of farming the ISK off the submissions and the crates, because back then I was still actually trying to get all the biosecurity skins from the crates, but I've already finished that, and there's really no need past level 500 to really do them, in my opinion. But I usually don't do them on my my alphas, because alphas are, you know, only can be logged in one account at a time, and also they only get like 100 submissions out of 200, so it's just obnoxious to do like one at a time when I can have just do the omegas 3 at a time and call it a day. But between PI and Project Discovery, those are probably the two biggest things I do on the weekends. It's just been a lot different these past few weeks because I've been just really trying to focus down a lot on the solo mining series and really starting to try to like get some stuff accomplished. So we just killed that rock. What I'm doing is I'm orbiting at 3,000. Well, actually, I'm orbiting at 2,500. But with the speed that I'm going, it ends up being over 2,500 meters. And the reason I'm doing that is if I need to cloak, I can just cloak, kill lasers, cloak, keep the orbit going, and then take off if I need to. You never know what's going to happen on these sites. You have a gang fleet come in, which I've never had a gang fleet come in on these. But somebody was asking me why I don't do like a lot of high-sec ice, and the biggest reason I don't is because it's we're going to talk about ganking. We're going to talk about like different areas of space, things that you don't want to do, and things like that. But ice is one of those things that just is very, very dangerous because it's predictable. Okay, there's only like a few high-sec systems and per region that get ice, and those are usually a big draw for a lot of miners, and so by extension it's a big draw for PvPers because it's a predictable system that's kind of predictable targets, and so it's just kind of like, you know, the kill box, as it were. So I stay away from high-sec mining. It's just not worth it. Or high-sec ice mining, it's just not worth the trouble. The last time I did high-sec ice mining, I went in endurance, which I wasn't bothered with the endurance. Once I brought in my Orca and started boosting my endurance, then I started getting people bumping me off and stuff like that, and it's just obnoxious. If I really wanted ice, I would just go to nullsec, where I could be on the ice belt by myself all day, get better yield out of the reproc of that stuff anyway. Like pristine white is so much better than normal white. So that's the big reason why you don't see me doing ice a lot, because it's a kill box. It's a bottleneck. It's a good place to avoid for the most part. And then also, why don't I do a lot of low sec mining? And I think I've covered this pretty much ad nauseum at this point, but I mean, I've done Jaspit anomaly mining in low sec. I've done Kernite. It's okay. Low sec is probably now technically safer than a lot of high sec systems, which is weird, but it's just with these Empire border sites existing like they do, it's just a lot more value and a lot less risk. A lot of the annoying bits about low sec mining isn't necessarily like potential PvP. It's more or less like dealing with the rats. Like if you want to go in there with something quick, like a prospect endurance, you're going to have a difficult time with the rats being destroyers and stuff like that. So, and you don't really want to take anything bigger than that, because then it's just, you know, slow getting off grid. So it's kind of a toss up. But I don't know. I've always wanted to like live in low sec for like an extended amount of time. It's just every time I do, it just seems to be not very high value, because it's like, in my mind, it's like, okay, either if I'm gonna live in low sec, I'm gonna do like Kernite mining probably more than Jaspit, is Kernite's probably a little bit more abundant. It's definitely more abundant than waiting for anomalies. But also, it's like, with, I think if the Empire border sites didn't exist, then yeah, I think it would be a little bit more appealing. But even without these Empire border sites, it's like Poshman, right? Go out there and grab any of those abyssal ores, Spudmain, all that stuff is even still a lot easier than low sec. So I stay away from low sec. But what's weird is I've been doing a lot of exploring here lately too, and I find a lot of empty low secs, and I think a lot of that has to do with just how like rampant the ganking is and stuff in high sec lately. It's just kind of ridiculous, which I think worries me a lot too. It's because one of the biggest concerns I have with Eve is player retention, like actually getting people into the game, getting them in long enough so they can kind of learn the ropes, learn their way around, and then kind of find their niche or their spot where they, kind of operate in. And I think that's a big disconnect right now. I think with the amount of craziness that goes on in high sec right now, it drives a lot of people off. I mean, I've talked to people who have been just in a high sec, kind of doing their thing, learning the ropes, learning the UI, learning the whole mechanics of it, and just get obliterated by gank fleets and things like that. And even one of those games too is like, if you're going to like try to get one of your friends into it, you would have to explain and introduce them to the game with like a lot of caveats. And I think that's one of my biggest issues, is because I think unless Eve has some sort of way in the future to allow newer players to kind of be safe from like the whole ganking craziness and kind of learn the ropes and kind of ease them into the whole like craziness of New Eden, I think that's might help. It's just, I guess to put this in perspective, is like, I think anybody with like kids, or anybody who has kids, or somebody who's in the like video games, you probably know that the games that they're interested in are nowhere near as complicated as Eve and stuff like that. I see this pretty much firsthand because my son is into video games and stuff, but we're talking like very short attention span, very much everything is, gotta be handheld, and we're talking like, one of my favorite games on the Nintendo was like Super Mario Bros. 3, and I have it on the 3DS, and they play the 3DS a little bit. My younger two play the 3DS a lot, but my older son will not play the 3DS because he says the games are too hard. And even on the newer Mario games, like these newer Mario games now, if you die so much on a level, they literally will give you like a raccoon tail with like basically a superstar that makes you invincible for the whole level. So then all you have to do is walk through. It's like a big handicap on the newer Mario games. And even with that, they still get frustrated and don't want to play because they say it's too complicated. And so I look at that and I'm thinking, wow, if they can't even do, if they don't have the attention span to do something as simple as like a Mario game where it's just trial and error and just learning, like, it's like a learning curve, then there's no way that we're going to get another 1 or 2 generations of new players into Eve. And if we do get new players into Eve, they're going to go straight into PvP, F1, gun monkeys. And there's nothing wrong with being an F1 gun monkey, but it's like that it causes even further imbalance in the game, where now you have more people on the PvP side than on like the PvE industrial side. And that's kind of what we're seeing now. We're seeing the kind of the product of that is just rampant PvP and high sec, which just drives off people that might be into mining or ratting. And it's not great, right? I don't know what the solution is for that. I know a lot of people on Reddit and stuff have suggested things like you can't turn off, safety green unless you're, more than 30 days old, or if you're -10 security, then you can't dock. Other ideas that have bounced around is update Concord, where their response times are pretty much instant and they pod you. Don't discourage ganking, but, have there be some sort of a buffer area in between each gank and stuff like that. I don't know how I feel about that. It's like ganking is very important to the ecosystem in Eve, right? Like without risk, then we would just get bored kind of doing mining and stuff like that, because there'd be no danger of losing anything to another player, so it would stagnate really, really quick. So I don't know what the solution is. But even it's like, I think it's not even Eve related to really, but it's like even like trying to get my son or anybody, any newer generation into like, games that require a little bit of like, problem solving, or there's a learning curve, is almost impossible. Everything is just, my son won't even finish a movie. Like I can't get him to just sit down and watch a movie from beginning to end. Right? That's ridiculous. Like, and we'll get him like a new game or something for like the Switch or something like that for his birthday. And I don't think my son will ever complete a game. He plays Breath of the Wild, Zelda Breath of the Wild on the Switch, but it's like, he's not doing quests. He's not like, when I was doing Zelda when I was younger, like, I was 100%ing. I was getting all the heart containers, I was doing all the dungeons, getting all the weapons. I was making sure I got every bit of gameplay out of those things. And I mean, he just runs around in Breath of the Wild and doesn't really accomplish really anything. Which is just like a different, style, I guess. Just a different way of thinking. It's just, I think with like with the amount of information on demand that's available now and the amount of options, it makes things a lot easier just to kind of lose focus. Because like back when I was younger, we had like a Nintendo with like a couple of games, so we didn't have a lot of options. So we got as much as we could out of every single cartridge. And then when handhelds start coming out, the Game Boy, Game Boy Pocket, Game Boy Color, like, we were still limited. I mean, I have probably, the 3DS that my kids have right now has more games on it stored in memory than I had probably my entire childhood. And they're like, there's nothing to play. And it's like, and I'll agree, it's like when you start looking at how game development has, kind of evolved over the years, where a lot of quality of life things have changed, or like controls and stuff. Yeah, it is difficult to go back. Even for me, like if I go back and try to do like old Mario games and stuff, yeah, it's like I kind of got to get that muscle memory back. But it's also just about like problem solving. You go through a level and you kind of learn it. You learn it until, you've got it pretty much memorized, and that's how you complete it. And I'm just afraid that like if Eve gets too complicated and more complicated, and we don't fix, like, I know they've done a lot of work with the new player experience, a lot of work. I just don't think it's enough, because it's not like it's not like the learning curve is running people off, right? It's like they're trying to learn the game and they just get blown up in like a starter system, and it's discouraging because they don't know what happened, they don't know what they did, they don't know how to avoid it. And they just go on to something else. And I think that's probably one of my biggest motivations for like doing an Eve channel, especially for mining, is to like let people know, like educate people on like ways that they can stay alive. And there's also just times where you can't do anything. There's just not going to be a lot you can do or control. Sometimes it's luck. But if you're out there trying to mine a bunch, many hours a day, yeah, you're probably going to get caught and everything. But there's also ways of like, kind of making yourself whole again too, that I don't really see a lot of people talking about. I was actually going to do a video this past week covering this, but for the life of me, I could not get anybody to gank me in high sec, despite trying. I hung out at a Udemy gate and in a venture. I sat outside Jita Dock for 4 hours. I, autopiloted from Jita to Heck, and then to Amar, and back to Jita. Like, I needed to get ganked in high sec to like kind of show the concept I was going to talk about in that video. But instead of chasing that down, I'm probably just going to explain that here. But you can kind of make a little bit of your money back sometimes with your ganks, break even or even profit sometimes, and that's like kill rights. I don't see a lot of people talking about kill rights, and kill rights don't always sell, but I don't think I've ever had a kill right not sell. But also, I don't price my kill rights more than 50 million isk. I try to keep it between like 5 and 50 million. Now, the way kill rights work is if your ship is destroyed or your pod is destroyed in high sec, you get a kill right. If your pod is destroyed in low sec, you get a kill right. And essentially what that is, it's good for 30 days. You can either activate it yourself and that person will go suspect, not just for you, but for everybody, which is basically a free kill, no Concord involved. Or you can actually sell those, open them up to public and sell them for whatever you want to put in there for risk. Now, what you can do is, let's say, this only works for like, either the very low end of the spectrum or the high end of the spectrum in terms of like how much a ship is worth. So if I'm like a endurance or a prospect or a venture, I'm in a ship that only takes like one catalyst to kill, then I want to try to keep the value at like 50 million or less. But for this to really work, you kind of need more people on the kill mail. The more people, the better. So let's say you lose like tank out your Orca, put like reinforced bulkheads on your Orca and a bunch of tank, get like almost 400,000 EHP. Force them to use a lot of catalysts, get a lot of people on those kill mails. What I normally do is I'll take like the value of the ship or the value of the kill mail, and I'll divide that by the number of pilots on the kill mail, and then that's what I'll just set all the kill rights to. As long as it's not too crazy. Like if it goes up to like, if it ends up being like 67 million per kill right, then I'll bring it down to 50. Because that gives me a little bit of money back. It doesn't break me even, or it doesn't give me profit, but I usually don't go over 50 million on those. Or like in the past, I've actually profited from a gank before, where I was like mining an adventure. The fit for the venture was like literally maybe 7 million. Got ganked, got potted. There was nothing on the pod. It had no value. But I got 2 kill rights on that. I put the kill right actually up 50 million, and somebody bought it. So not only did I get the insurance for the uninsured tier, which I'll talk about in a minute, but I also got the 50 million from selling the kill right. So I ended up profiting quite a bit, over with close to like 40 million profit on losing that ship. And that just kind of like made me feel a little bit better about taking losses, because I know there is an option out there to make some of that money back. But also I don't use insurance either. And let me know in the comments if you actually use insurance, because insurance is just one of those things that I think is just an ISK sink. The amount you pay towards insurance versus how much you get is so disproportionate to the actual value. That's not really the insurance system's fault. That's the inflation of the market's fault. But even in a perfect world, I think the insurance has been nerfed to the point where it can't be exploited. But what I think a lot of people don't know is that even if you don't insure your ship, you still will get a payout. It's a lot less, but it's still something. So if you go and you lose a venture and you get the uninsured tier payout from Concord or whatever, and you sell the kill right, you could potentially make your money back. Hell, if you're flying a 10 million ISK venture and you get ganked and you sell that kill right for 10 million, somebody will probably buy it, especially if you get ganked in like Udemy or around one of the gates in Jita. People are looking for those kill rights so that they can activate those and pop those people when they're not suspecting it. There is an entire whole set of players that make it their job to utilize kill rights. So I make it a point whenever I can to provide that stuff. There's been times where I've actually offered up kill rights for free, and they go just like that. You know, people will take them, and the kill right will last for 30 days. So even if you don't sell it, you know, you can end up changing it to offer free or activate it yourself or whatever. But it's like kind of a fire and forget. I have it, I had the kill right, put it out there. If it comes back, it comes back. If not, you know, cool. But, you know, for anybody out there who's getting into mining and they're afraid that if they lose this venture, then they're going to have to go and grind out another 7 to 10 mil to buy another one, sell those kill rights, and it won't hurt so bad and everything. Now, keep in mind, a lot of people that are going to gank you who are full-time criminals, you know, they basically live at -10. They're not going to care. They're free to shoot anyway all the time. That doesn't mean someone won't see the kill right and buy it anyway. You know, but once you put the kill right out there, it doesn't matter. You know, the rest of the transaction is beyond your control and stuff like that. But that's just how that goes. Anyway, enough about that. I wanted to make a whole video kind of illustrating that whole process, but that would require me to actually like get ganked in high sec. But and I tried. I definitely tried. I think it's probably one of those things. It was like if I wasn't actively trying, it would have happened. So instead of actually waiting around to try to like, I might still do a video in the future, kind of illustrating the whole process. But you could find the kill right by just going to your pilot profile, and then there's a kill right in there under interactions, I think. And when you have a kill right, it'll be under there, and you can mess with the options and stuff like that. But it helps. And that's what the big part of this channel is, to hopefully educate and, you know, kind of motivate people to get past the initial rough spot of that is high sec. I hang out in high sec because that's just kind of how I do. I'm unbiased when it comes to like the politics of null sec. Running a YouTube channel, I am not, you know, vouching for one alliance over another. I am a neutral party for the most part, so high sec makes a lot of sense for me. But I do believe that like once you kind of figure everything out, once you kind of start getting your skills and your tank and you're kind of in T2 tank, start looking at trying to get out of high sec, because it's only getting worse. In the past 4 years, high sec has gotten so incredibly rowdy that it's getting ridiculous, to the point where the serious changes are going to have to come into play. Now, obviously, I have my own opinions on what needs to be changed. I don't think ganking in high sec should ever be like completely eliminated. I think a good start would probably be, yeah, let's augment Concord. You know, make Concord's response time, you know, damn near instant. Have Concord pod you. You know, have them beef them up a little bit. And I think if you're -10 standings, they either just disallow docking in high sec. It just, as a lore, even a lore perspective, it doesn't make any sense, right? So you're a -10 criminal, you come into the system, they're like, the system even tells you, like, you know, leave or you will be attacked on sight, and then they immediately let them dock in their stations. It's like, just don't let them dock. Or, you know, you could say, oh, let's just not let them into high sec at all. But I think let them dock. If Concord pods them, then, you know, that when they pod them, send them to like the nearest, like, you know, low sec NPC station, or like the nearest acid safety station or something. And then also, like, for new players, I think a lot of new players get into trouble because they like start messing around with like the safety timer and stuff like that, and they don't know how they get into situations. So I think also like locking the safety to green if you're less than 30 days is not a bad option either. Obviously, if you leave high sec, then you're free to change it and do whatever you gotta do. I think this also helps with like people, you know, trying to skirt the security thing by, you know, dragging a gank alt tune down to like -10 and then just deleting it, making a new one, and, you know, going right back at it. That's already against terms of service, but it's very difficult to enforce. But if they, in that situation, if they deleted that character, started a new one, then that character would be less than 30 days, and so they couldn't come off of safety green. So that would kind of help enforce that a little bit. We're not getting rid of ganking completely. I think it's a very healthy part of the whole ecosystem. But it's like, make that gank worth it. Make that suicide group gank worth it. It's like, you know, if I go after this target, then I'm gonna lose some security, and I won't be able to dock, and all these things will happen, and I'll have to build it up to the next one. Right now, it's insane and everything. But I don't know. I don't really, like I said in past videos, I don't really have an issue with getting ganked, but also I'm kind of an advocate for the people who do, people who are learning the game, who get in situations that they might not understand the consequences, and, you know, pay with their ship. But I think there's a lot of things that could be made a little bit more, or there's a lot of things in the game that could be probably communicated clearer, like rolling over the system name, you know, rolling over the system security in the top of the screen. The tooltip should show the response time for Concord, so that's known, so that you don't have to actually go to like a wiki or YouTube page to figure it out. But even still, it's like Concord's response time in a 1 or in a 0.9 is still so slow. And the way the mechanic is, they're so slow anyway, you can just, you know, kite them off. So you do like a minor criminal activity somewhere else in the system, pull them in one side of the system, and then gank in the other end. And that's just a way to get around it too. But I don't know. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. I went down a rabbit hole the other night on Reddit while I was waiting for a video to render, and it was like this huge conversation about, you know, how much high sec ganking has gotten crazy and everything, and it kind of just got me thinking and stuff. And also, it's like, I don't think that anybody should ever be like 100% safe in EVE, but I think that with the way that new gamers and the new generation of gamers are, I think that significant changes need to be made to the new player experience to even hope to retain them. Because gone are the days where gamers, newer generation, are not going to come in and be like, there's a learning curve, we'll get past it, you know, min-max, all that crazy stuff. It's like, if they're going to leave at the slightest, you know, obstacle for the most part. And in most cases, those kind of people probably won't make it in EVE, you know, long term anyway. But I think in a lot of situations, there are people who are, you know, trying to learn the game, and they don't even get to the point to figure out if they like it or what part of the game they like, and it's just, you know, constant craziness. I don't know. It's a difficult topic, because it's like you want player retention, but you also need to train people. I think it's another issue too, is it's like, I guess the one solution that we've, you know, seen in the past is like, people who invite their friends to play EVE immediately, it's like, when you get in, we're just going to drag you over to nullsec. It's safer there, and they learn the ropes out there, and then they have a stuck perspective, right? Their entire existence is basically nullsec. And it kind of happened to me a little bit, but I did spend a lot of time in high sec before I went to nullsec. But I can see, like, if somebody actually did get sucked into nullsec immediately, then they would have no idea. They would be they'd have to break out of that that cage and start exploring the game on their own, because once you kind of get stuck in the nullsec block kind of lifestyle, it's very difficult to break away once you start making good ISK out there. But once the politics start, you know, coming in, you start looking for other pastures, so to speak. But I don't know. I like the challenge of EVE. I think that, you know, they are definitely, you know, doing better with a lot of the newer stuff coming out. But it's like, instead of worrying about like things like Skinner or customized ships and microtransactions and all these Plex syncs, it's like, I think they should really focus on player retention, because that, if they want EVE forever, player retention is going to be how they make that work. And like I said, they're dealing with a whole different generation of gamers now, different generation. But no, that's enough of the rant on this episode. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.